Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of Zarawundi, the podcast. I am joined today by Lucito de Jesus, who's based in Manila, Philippines. And I met Cito through a Daloy Movement activity. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Daloy Movement, I can put that in the notes. And it's this amazing organization created by Aya Torado. They use dance and energy healing and all sort of amazing guest teachers. And they have a ritual every full moon. And I try to join when I can. And so I was really excited when they were featuring Lucito, whose nickname is the Dream Sensei. Cito is a practicing psychotherapist, like I said, based in Manila. And I'm just so fascinated by the realm of dreams and somebody who would specialize in that. It's kind of a daunting area for me. A lot of my clients and students ask me to interpret dreams, and I'm always very, very resistant. And so I was really curious about the session that I attended, and it did give some answers, and I just really want to know more. And so, welcome, Lucito. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for guesting me in the program. I'm glad that this would be an international podcast. Even if you didn't consider Manny Pacquiao as an international celebrity.
I'm so sorry. So, Lucito was asking if we could talk about Manny Pacquiao's dream, and I wasn't interested. So sorry about that.
No, it was just. I thought if you would be interested for having a podcast about Manny Pacquiao, because my friends here in Manila who know my expertise and who know Manny Pacquiao would say, why don't you make a blog about his dream? Because he's not just running for president here. He's the greatest boxer in the world so far. He had actually exceeded the Muhammad Ali legend. Some boxer analysts say that, and some of my friends said, do a blog. You could have 1 million followers or something like that, because somebody so much in the world follows Manny Pacquiao. But anyway.
But I mean, by all means, write about that. I'm sure a lot of people will be interested, but my podcast does not have such a wide following, nor does it really have that pretension to appeal to the masses, because we talk about a bit of the esoteric and a bit of the a lot of people get turned off, and we might have more viewers if we talk about boxing. But actually, Manny Pacquiao did come up in my conversation last night with one of my energy healing friends, so we're totally digressing from what I had in mind. But I recently renewed my martial arts practice, and I was talking to one of my arnis teachers, and he's a student of Yao Yan, which is one of the Filipino martial arts. And he was telling me that the master of his grandmaster taught Manny Pacquiao, and that's what gave Manny Pacquiao the edge, is having these FMA Filipino martial art Yao Yan secrets. And I was like, really? Is that really, really true? Like, I thought that was interesting, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's true. So, but I'd rather not talk about Manny Pacquiao. I'd rather talk about Lucito.
Well, maybe because as a Dream Sensei, of course, I am too much in the world of symbolism, and also saving people from all disasters, if possible. My advocacy is really about peace and wholeness, and if in some way or the other, another person or some other people will be helped about their journey towards peace, inner peace, or their wholeness through my work on dreams and the unconscious mind. And there's so much about the unconscious mind. That's why sometimes people are sometimes afraid to approach the dream, because it's part of the unconscious. But whether we like it or not, the unconscious manifests in a lot of ways. Sometimes we think it's just the rational mind who is making this move, but actually there's influence of the unconscious mind. Just like, for example, the tattoo on your on your left upper arm. It may be consciously driven, but then there's maybe some other unconscious aspects about it.
That's and thank you for bringing that up again. So let's talk about my tattoo. And then we'll go into how you acquired your Dream Sensei title. So I have a tattoo of a raven atop a skull, which it's kind of an old. I had it over 10 years ago, and it puts people off, by the way, very much, and people have very strong dislikes regarding this tattoo. And it has a lot of meaning to me because it's related to, first of all, death, and it's related to Mexican shamanism. And my introduction to lucid dreaming was through Mexican shamanism, in particular, the works of Carlos Castaneda. So, why are you laughing?
Well, because when I was giving my workshops, public workshops already with the Inner Mind Development Institute, I don't know if you've heard of that.
No.
Some foreigner clients of mine would mention Carlos Castaneda.
No, he's a big figure in my journey, in my life. I got into Carlos Castaneda in college when I was, late teens, early 20s. Mm-hmm. And I so admired how they built this relationship to death. And then one of the practices to become a shaman was to practice lucid dreaming. And so there was this very simple exercise where you had to look at your hands in your dreams. And I remember for weeks and maybe months, I tried to look at my hands in my dreams and I couldn't. And then I was like, I'm never going to be a shaman. Like, I just need to forget it. And this isn't for me. And so I cast all of that aside. And many years later, like over 20 years later, all of a sudden I'm working with shamanic practices. I'm a shamanic Reiki practitioner, and I'm working with a sensei in Japan. And he told me that his samurai name is actually, it means crow. So like you said, there's so many layers to these things.
There's so many layers, and there's synchronicity.
And samurai training is all about relationship with death, as you're.
Well, basically, the meaning of samurai is to serve.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Well, it means to serve, and in fact, just yesterday, I was giving a corporate workshop for an executive person, and the title of the workshop that I will be giving her is called Compassionate Samurai.
Wow.
Where there is a balance of this samurai as the way of the warrior, Bushido, yes. But at the same time, compassionate because there's a balance of kind-heartedness and ability to relate to other people. So it's not just toughness, but a toughness with a heart. So Compassionate Samurai is the title of the program, and it looks into character building.
Amazing.
Like into commitment, trust, and those things. Because in the corporate ladder, it is not just image making. It's when you have a character, as they say, as I was saying, when you have a good character in some other countries, not yet in the Philippines, you could have a character loan because your character is dependent on.
What's a character loan?
Well, based on your character, you could make a loan in the bank.
Oh, okay. A character. Okay, based on your character. Wow. Okay.
Because and the word of the person who has a good character is like a promise.
Honor.
It's an honor.
Honor.
So the Compassionate Samurai is something like that. Well, the program about that. So, but anyway, we were talking about the unconscious, and the idea is there are people who may be repelled to the idea of character because it could be old-fashioned to talk about character development, but there's a particular character, for example, of the raven.
Can you tell me about that?
Well, basically, as a character of the raven, it flies. So I wonder if you unconsciously is also a person who is flighty, who flies. I remember, I'm still single, by the way, and one of the books that I've read is The Flying Boy. And sometimes people who've been flying may want to be happy, just like Peter Pan. But in your case, this is a raven. So this is usually associated with occult, an ominous sign. But at the same time, it's also associated really more directly with death.
Mhm. Yeah.
But basically, death also could symbolize rebirth.
Yeah.
And yet, that's why the shamans basically is also, in the olden times, they called them the birdman. That's why they have a staff and the head is a bird, because the bird is a symbol for transformation and transcendence, because they could fly just like a spirit. So there's so many things about it, but to be personally relating to the spirit and embodying the spirit is another thing. And that's the challenge, to embody, just like put it in character, as we say.
So my bird has a name. Do you want to know its name?
What's the name?
Can you guess it?
I am interested.
Yeah, his name is Patience.
Wow. Yeah. I am a part of a group, an international group called ARE, Association for Research and Enlightenment. This is based on the Edgar Cayce reading, and it looks into the Akashic record. Mm-hmm. We have a lot of disciplines, and the primary discipline that we have is patience.
There you go.
Patience is the builder of all virtues. Without patience, there will be no virtues at all. There will be no love if there's no patience. No other patience. That's why in our discipline, in ARE discipline, Association for Research and Enlightenment, our discipline goes point by point, line by line, step by step. Have that kind of patience. And the patience is not a passive patience. It is an active patience. And the patience also that allows the fourth dimension spiritual aspect of one's life to manifest. It's also allowing God's will to happen in one's life. Because if one is not really patient, and what is strong is the personal ego will, one may not be able to align with the higher will. Patience allows a person to be aligned with the higher will. But the world teaches a lot of personal will. It's willfulness. And too much willfulness may not be healthy. Because then we will credit our creation from our ego, our willfulness. But if we see that our will is aligned with the higher will, and then we are what we call in the archetype of the good magician. Magic happens when the magician is aligned with the higher will. That's why there are solutions in our problems, like in mythological studies. How do you solve the problem of this ladybird? Are you familiar with that movie, Lady Bird?
No.
The ladybird is a woman that is cursed by the bishop or the cardinal, because the cardinal has his heart with this princess, but she is in love with a knight. She is in love with a black knight. And so he cursed the woman to be a bird, a ladybird. And the black knight, when he cursed the black knight, became a wolf. He became a wolf in the morning, and she is a bird in the evening. They never met. They couldn't meet. But the solution of the problem is, this is a transformative image, is when the day is not a day and the night is not a night. Will that ever happen? It will happen during eclipse. And in the story, there is an eclipse. The night is not the night and the day is not the day. So they finally met. And the curse is gone. So in terms of symbolism, this happens in the unconscious. We may not be aware of it, but somehow our solutions to the problem may come from a higher nature, just like an eclipse. It is not personally willed by a person. There is a higher order of things. But could the personal will or the ego rational mind align itself? So the rational mind, as we know in psychology, is just a little degree of weight as far as the unconscious mind is concerned. And I'm talking about the unconscious mind. I'm not talking even of the subconscious mind. Sigmund Freud talks about the subconscious mind, and that is about our repressed consciousness in the womb of our mother up to the time of our age right now. There's a lot of repressed things there. It's the subconscious mind coming from our senses, feeling, thinking, seeing, all of the senses. But the unconscious mind is beyond that. The unconscious mind is part of what we call kairos time. It comes from our past, and it could also come from the future. That's why we have dreams like what we call deja vu, as if this happened. In the rational consciousness, it seems this has happened, but the rational mind, the consciousness is, it's just my first time here, but it seems like I've been here before. So that is the unconscious mind working in what we call, the term is called deja vu, when there is a future memory. It happens in the unconscious mind.
Yeah, I
not
get that
in the
a lot.
subconscious mind.
Yeah.
So we don't even know what's there, but as we go to the symbolism of your crow, there are synchronicity associated with your current sensei or in the past. So that's why in the unconscious mind, it's called kairos time. It's kairos time, meaning it's eternal now. In the chronological time, which is the rational mind, the conscious mind has what we call chronological time, chronos. Today, tomorrow, yesterday.
Past, present, future, yeah.
Yes.
And the other time is timeless.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's why the unconscious also perceived by others as something like the sea, the ocean. It could engulf us and it could be overwhelming that we could be afraid about it. And so that's some people don't want to even look at their dreams.
They don't want to dream, yeah. And
or they don't want to go to training or psychotherapy because there's nothing wrong with
scary.
me.
It's scary.
Yeah, because it is the rational mind that is making the judgment.
Sure. So, how can I look at my hands in my dreams?
Look at your hands. This is my personal comment, and I may be wrong, but my limited experience in Dreamwork and lucid dreaming and all those stuff, the instruction given to you by looking at your hands to have lucid dreaming is so limited and rigid.
Okay.
There's so many ways to be lucid.
Thank you.
There's so many ways.
I feel better.
There's so many ways of becoming lucid in the dream. But the question is, why do you want to be lucid in your dream? What for?
Secret. No, just kidding.
Secret. But, in dreams, and I'm familiar with out-of-body experiences and those stuff. But the idea is, as a psychotherapist, I don't prescribe lucid dreaming for people who are already so much in control of their life. If you're a controlling person...
Oh, I'm not in control.
That's why. So if you're my client, I would advise you to go to a dream re-entry and a lucid dreaming. But it is like an adventure. It is...
Yeah. It's like, I do that all the time. Shamanic journeys. I guide people in shamanic journeys, and we do that. Okay, so let's just take a break from my crow and my dreams, and how did you get that name, Dream Sensei? How long have you had that title, and how did you get it?
I started using the title to myself. Signing my documents under my name as Dream Sensei when I became an Aikido sensei. When I got my black belt, when I'm starting teaching, and I was able to put together my psychology and psychotherapeutic dream knowledge into Aikido.
Oh, wow. That sounds amazing. Tell me more about that.
Yeah. For example, when I start my podcast or my program before, I will do this. Because it's calling attention psychologically, like what we do with babies with a rattler. For example, like this. For a rattler.
Yeah. I have one. I have one of those.
Like this? Or
Yeah.
because the consciousness or the soul is out there. So I do this. So to
Just
call
calling it
attention.
in. Yeah.
Have the soul there. I do not assume that they're all there and their attention is with me. That is I don't assume that.
So you're talking about combining Dreamwork with Aikido, which I find fascinating because I'm realizing how important martial arts is in a spiritual journey, actually. Yeah.
Well, yes. And the challenge about Aikido or martial arts is that one needs to go to the mat. One cannot really learn the martial arts by looking at a video in the YouTube. You need to practice with a sensei because it's dangerous. Like in Aikido, one could break his bones or another person's bones. But the more important thing is the principle, such that the principle need to be embodied. Yeah. Like when we do this in Aikido, when the hand is flexed, it's called flexibility. We need flexibility. Ikkyo, Nikkyo, Sankyo, all of those stuff. Or the idea of Aikido, meaning blending, harmony. Or I means love. I. Ki means the invisible energy that connects everybody. And Do means the divine way or the path. Aikido. So, as far as the sensei, the one who created Aikido, Ushiba Murehei, he says, this is creating one family in one world. This could be the martial arts of all the whole world because there's no contest. There's no competition in Aikido.
Yeah.
You don't compete. There's no dominance. You blend and you harmonize. So it is to create the whole family. But it's an inner journey and also outer journey. And for me as a teacher and a dream worker and psychologist and those stuff, I want that somehow my students would really embody. In Aikido, embodiment, it's practice. And I've accompanied people, executives and those stuff who talks about listening and communication, but they have not embodied communication. They have not embodied listening. They have not embodied non-defensive communication. They have not embodied this. They want to dominate. They are in a meeting and they dominate all their subordinates. So that's why when I get to this part where I become a sensei and practicing already for more than, I think, 2 years, then I gave the title Dream Sensei. Because the dream part is I've been practicing it for more than 30 years. So I'm more known with others as a dream expert, dream master, dream, whatever dream. But I refrain from that title because it is the unconscious mind, really. Because how can one master the unconscious mind? It is just pretending to be a god.
So how did you become known as a dream expert? How does one become a dream expert?
Well, you know, I'm not really a psychology major before. I'm a mass comm person. Okay. But then, yeah, I was a mass comm person.
Well, that's delving into the unconscious right there. But yeah.
Well, yes. And I realized somehow the divine God sometimes write a straight line in a crooked way. Our journey seems to swirl, go zigzag, and then we reach a destination when it is really what we call our life purpose. And in my case, I was a mass comm student and I wanted to sell God in media. Then I became a peer counselor in charge. And then before I graduated in my mass comm, I was invited by De La Salle as a guidance counselor. During my time, they need a male guidance counselor. And the one who took a practicum in my school, Trinity College of Quezon City, now it's Trinity University of Asia. I think I have exhibited some good traits as being a counselor, so they invited me. No interviews, no anything. I got invited. I invited to a lunch and say, sit with us, and the requirements would follow next. And so as a guidance counselor, at some point, we had a workshop on what we call Preach Pearls. I don't know if you're familiar with the name of Preach Pearls. Preach Pearls talks about the idea that dreams are Dreams embody all about the person. So any character in the dream, you are that person. That's a part of you.
It's a
So the idea is like sitting with that character. You want to know about that butterfly or that crow. You sit down with the crow, talk, have a dialogue.
Exactly.
It is just like a Saint Savior or some spiritual engagement or dialogue with the objects, with characters, or with symbols in the dream. That's Fritz Perls. And I was 24 at that time. I remembered when I was 14, I had a dream. My dream had to do with the devil running after me. I was 14. And I think when I was 14, you know, when libido is so high and those stuff, and maybe I was circumcised at a later age, those kind, and I cannot get rid of the devil that's running after me. That I was 14, and now I was 24, and I realized, there's such a thing as a study of dreams.
Wow.
And here is Preach Pearls.
Preach Pearls.
And I had a dream about when I was 14. I don't exactly understand it, but my intuition probably knows what's about it.
Yeah.
I still work on that dream even up to now, you know, even I was 14. Because then when Sigmund Freud was introduced to me in my theories of personality class in psychology, and then Carl Jung, and then Alfred Adler, wow. And then I come across with another guy whose name is Strephon Kaplan-Williams, who said that dreams should not be, or dream therapy or psychotherapy need not be caged in to the doctors, to the MDs. It need to be given to people.
Yeah,
so Strephon Kaplan-Williams was a Jungian psychologist, but then he made his Dreamwork technique familiar with people so that people could practice dream work without having to be an MD.
So how do we get started with that? How do we get started with Dreamwork? Well,
with the kind of dream work of Strephon Kaplan-Williams, he has this book called Jungian Senai's Dream Manual. So he combined the Jungian principles and Dream Senai tribe in Malaysia in that. So we start by, of course, impossible writing the dream. Without the dream, there's no dream work.
Right.
But actually, dream work is what we do before the dream, during the dream, and after the dream.
Okay.
So before the dream, we could have what we call dream incubation.
Right.
You could incubate a dream.
Right.
There is also what we call dream programming, which Harvard University or AIM prescribed to their business students. Dream programming. There's also what we call dream incubation, other stuff that we do. For example, in our practice in the Philippines or in some other nations, they would put the picture of their ex-boyfriend or their husband under their pillow to dream about them, or something like that. But that's a dream.
Is that dream programming? Is that the basis?
Well, in that sense, that's a dream invocation. One is already invoking a dream.
So what's the difference between dream programming and dream?
In dream programming, maybe for business concerns or for other personal concern.
Yeah, if you have a question, right?
Yeah, you have a question, but you do research first with a question. You program it.
Can you give an example?
Oh, for example, I have when I was young, there was a man called Rhodes, Mr. Eric Rhodes. His business was in furniture, but then his furniture shop got burned. And so he invoked a dream. It involved prayers and those stuff and have research, those things. And then he had a dream. He had a dream about going to a business of orchids, from furniture to orchids. So from the invoke dream or a program dream, he made a research and he found out, hey, this is the one. And he found out that in the Philippines, the most expensive orchid is found in the Philippines.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
Yeah. let me recall the name. I can't recall the name right now, but it's in the Philippines. Yeah.
So basically, he used dream programming to get a new business idea to replace his.
Yes, it's so radical from furniture to orchid.
Are you familiar with the tarot?
Yes.
Yeah, and I feel like it's very similar. Yeah, I feel like it's very similar. The way it would work.
Yeah. Well, the principle that works with any card reading, tarot card or whatever angel card, the principle is what we call synchronicity. And Carl Jung used this term more. That's why his theory for dreams and personality is more not just on a cause and effect. Sigmund Freud's idea of dreams is that there is a cause why you dream of it. There's a cause. It's a causal theory. But for Carl Jung, it is not just a causal theory. He believes that there's a purpose. There's a purpose why you dream of this, theological. Yeah. So they are what he calls synchronicity. Right. It's meaning there's a purpose why you dream of that. Maybe it's not part of your world of meanings right now.
Conscious,
but but it's there. Like Carl Jung talks about in terms of personality, not just thinking, not just feeling, not just sensing, but he talks about intuition, the hunches. Right. And so for one to become whole, in the journey to wholeness, one needs to incorporate or integrate these aspects of one's being.
Yes.
And there's so many things about one's being. He will be called
individuation.
Yes. And he talks about the shadow. But even before you get to your shadow, you need to work with your male part, your animus and your anima, and so forth and so on. But there's no rule there. The idea is to be open, and in that openness is probably having a delight to discover. But also one needs to be cautious because some aspects of the unconscious mind may take us to the really, really shadow part, the evil part. Because there's a personal shadow and there's a collective shadow, but there's really an evil part.
Evil part of what? The collective or the personal?
Evil part of the unconscious or of the world or what they refer to as Satan. Well, it depends on the consciousness.
Is it the same Satan that you dreamt of when you were 14?
Yes.
The same one?
Well, that is my labeling in my consciousness when I was 14. But the more I learn more about the unconscious mind, I realized that demon in my dream, that devil in my dream, could be associated to Sigmund Freud's id. So in Sigmund Freud, he had this personality constructs where he talks about the id, ego, and superego. And the id is the one that has to do with comfort, pleasure, reptilian brain, all of those stuff. The id.
I mean, yeah, in the tarot, the devil card talks to like sexuality, maybe hidden desires, things like that. Definitely. Yeah. Can we go back to this warning about going too deep into shadow work? Is that what you're asking people to proceed with caution because they might touch something? Well, how do they proceed with caution? I mean, if you're, you either
to prepare for being cautious, it's really one needs to make sure or somehow have an idea, a sense that they have a good ego strength. And I don't know if people are able to work on their ego strength. I've worked with priests. I work with religious. And sometimes
Are you a religious person? I see there's a picture of Jesus behind you. And Mary.
You saw Jesus? Yeah. Well, let me say that I am really believe in Jesus, in Mama Mary, as a God and a Savior. But at the same time, I look at them as symbolic also of people, of our archetypes. The idea is probably it's on the consciousness, in my consciousness, other people's consciousness. No, but let me go back about this idea of having a healthy ego or or strong ego in order to prevent being taken up by the negative, the really shadow part of going on the unconscious aspect of life or a lot of things.
Okay.
Because if one has a weak ego, maybe a good example is this. There's a lot of trolls.
Okay.
There are, in my psychoanalysis, all the trolls may have a weak ego.
Online trolls.
Trolling.
Right. Okay.
Because the motivation, if we do an analysis, it's all id. It's all id, but the negative id. It's even jeopardizing the health of a country.
I see.
It's
okay.
Right. It's a collective shadow.
It is.
Why would one take risk about the collective
see.
shadow? And your children's will be affected.
Can you go
because
further
of
with
money?
that? Yeah.
That's
okay.
a shadow.
Okay.
Well, I've worked with priests and sometimes and religious, and they have a strong ego, and they would want to give themselves to God. How could you really give yourself to God or give your ego up when you have not worked on yourself? You have not worked on your sexuality. You have not worked on your issues of power. You have not worked on your issues of your shadow. How could you?
Right. So first
Then
you have to have sovereignty over yourself before being able to surrender anything.
Yes. The idea is surrender everything, I guess.
Once you're sovereign already. Yeah.
Well, you could also only give. You could only give the divine.
Yeah.
If you have already owned yourself, what could you give if you don't have even yourself? You need. We need to own ourselves to give it, but we don't even own ourselves, and we're giving it. It is like going into a marriage. You go into a marriage, you go to a vow, a sacred vow, and you don't even know yourself.
Yeah.
You expect your wife to be your mother, or the wife expects the husband to be their father, and there's so many unconscious stuff there. This is the archetypal journey, just like Christ saying yes to the cross. Getting married is just like saying yes to the cross and the crown.
The heart of darkness.
There's really a full consciousness about it. But how many people would really want to analyze themselves deep enough and to look into the process? Some people go to a task. That's why there's a term called task-oriented bastards.
Or spiritual bypassing. I was going to say.
Yes, they bypass it. And that is sad. And I think in terms of the collective right now, when we have the internet and every educational matter seems like available in the internet, I feel frustrated sometimes because even my students before, when I was teaching in the seminary, they go to I'm giving a lecture, for example, and they're going to their laptop and they make a report based on the laptop, Wikipedia. It's not the same as what the depth you will see from a book. What you see in Wikipedia will be, whatever. It's too shallow, I think. That's why, as in shamanistic practice or martial arts practice, the true one, you go to a sensei and a mentor. You really embody. You try to embody. It is not just words. As far as biblical perspective is concerned, we talk about the living word. It is not just a word, it's a living word. You need to live that word.
Yes, embodiment.
To inflesh the word. So, like in Aikido, in my advocacy of wholeness, individuation process, and peace, I accompany a person to incorporate all of this in the self. It's not an easy one because one encounters the shadow. And especially if one begins with the idea of worthlessness or unworthiness, that's difficult. Or probably, other than unworthiness, I had clients whose level of intellect may not be up to par. Let's say if they're 30s already, but their intellect may be just 6 years old. It's difficult.
Oh my God.
That's why patience is very important.
Yeah, I got patience right here.
Yes.
So let me ask you one more thing. Do you think that Dreamwork is accessible to everyone, or do you think it's better for a certain type of person, for example?
It is, well, accessible enough for somebody who has enough sanity. Our inner self has a wise and sane part in us. We invoke the wise and sane part of ourselves. Of course, the exception is if the intellect is the intellect of a child, and that interpretation could be subjective.
Well, I mean, children can be even better because they don't have those layers of conditioning. So maybe their interpretations are going to be pure.
However, children's emotions are very raw.
Right.
So that's why my
But
workshop
I
with
don't
children,
understand what intellect has to do with symbolism. I feel like the higher your IQ, the more you might be stuck in your head and unable to go into
that is what we call the Sage Archetype. Yeah, the Sage Archetype could be narrow and rigid about what it believes, but of course the balancing of the Sage Archetype would be the full archetype, the one who's able to have joy in taking risks. So
that's my card.
The full card.
Yes.
So just be careful with the full card, because the full card could be a trickster. Be
like
aware,
this guy, like the crow.
Because in the levels of maturity of the full archetype would be the trickster, and the trickster could be very mean. I see your face.
I'm glad nobody else was going to see my face.
but it's the same also with
that's the shadow. That's the shadow aspect.
Yes, that's the shadow aspect. Yeah. And a lot of politicians use their trickster combined with the negative magician archetype. There's an image making, but then it's like a balloon. It's all balloon. You burst the bubble, it's all helium. Nothing more afterwards. And some people who is into the id, because the immediate in terms of the id is, well, I believe what he says. He promised this, and yes, it's a promise. Even if you know in reality that promise have been broken several times, there's already what we call idolatry. And that is, he is not a god, or she is not a god. So idolatry could be projected and transferred to a person who's living or dead or whatever. And so the awareness of one's being in terms of working with dreams is important. And let me go back to the story. So when I was in LaSalle got into a trimestral program. The students who visit us in the guidance office became fewer and fewer, because they will spend more time in their requirements, academic requirements. But I know them and they have problems, personal problems. And so I said, if I could teach my students or those who regularly see me about the language of dreams, because they will have their dreams, they could be their own counselor or pastor or minister or whatever, if they know the language of dreams, because it's always available. The idea is to have them value dreams. And the first step is to value your dreams or value your unconscious. But somehow, as Carl Jung said, and this is the problem, Carl Jung said, the rational mind seems to be the God.
Yes.
It is what is being worshipped by human beings, the rational mind.
Yes. Okay.
And so sometimes it's enough, but you put aside the manifestation of the unconscious mind, like dreams or synchronicity or other things that are always there, but you don't see it, or we don't see it.
Do you have a personal practice with dreams, like a ritual or something that you do personally?
Well, when I was, again, pardon the term, when I was younger, more younger, I would have rituals invoking a dream during New Year, Christmas, my birthday.
Okay.
Yeah, and the ritual could be writing down what could be needing to be affirmed in my life, to be validated in my life, or what needs to be negated, or what issue I need to attend to. So I write it down, in a paper, or when I have a time, I will even draw and wait for a dream, and then work on it. So that's the ritual I do before. But right now, I reached a point where even if I don't have a dream for my birthday, I feel not recalling a dream is already also blissful. But before, well, as we said, anything in excess could not be healthy. So
what do you mean?
Well, anything in excess. If I'm dealing so much and comes to a point when I worry if I don't have any dream or not, nothing to work with because I'm the guy in dreams. The idea of I become rigid and tell myself, or my inner dialogue goes like, I'm a dream expert. I should be having dreams.
Okay. The inner critic.
The should there, is a cognitive distortion that it may not be healthy for me or any other person. The shoulds are cognitive distortions.
Yes, I agree. Yes. Okay. Wow. That's thank you for all that. I feel like we were jumping a little bit, but that's how it is when we're flowing. That's how dreams are, right? Not so much structure.
Sometimes it's unstructured. It's the unconscious.
Not structured. Yeah. But that's what I told you. We're just gonna flow. So.
Yes. That's why I also told you whether you prepared a question or not. I'm ready for it. Anyway, I have a tendency to go from this to that. It's all unconscious. But I know there's a wholeness in everything.
Yeah. No, that's helpful. One more question. Do you ever work with plant medicine?
Plant medicines?
Yes.
Well, we may call it plant medicine. That could be the label. But when I started feeling that my knees will hurt or some other issues, I started eating a lot of okra. And
that's not what I went.
Or I started eating a lot of ampalaya.
I mean for Dreamwork. Not for
Dreamwork? I was thinking about the other alternative.
No, I was thinking about mugwort, which I think in the Philippines it's Damon Maria, I think it's called maybe.
Yes.
Yeah, and so I read somewhere, I recently discovered mugwort, and apparently it's used for dream work. I don't know.
Yeah, and dizziness. And dizziness.
Oh, and dizziness?
Well, yes.
What do you mean?
Yes. Well, there is also this effort for some people or enterprising people who would want to have create some kind of dream pillow, and in the dream pillow they would have or citronella or what other kind of aromatic
I thought you could
plants.
drink it as a tea, or smudge it. Yeah. I was just wondering if you ever used.
No, because my problem, maybe not really a problem, a concern is that my knowledge about dreams, I wanted to pass on it to people without the, pardon my term, without the other needed items to facilitate the dream. Because not all people could afford, could have, or make available what other these things that could facilitate the dream. Right. And they could get frustrated by not being able to see their fingers when they have a dream, have a lucid dream.
Okay, and then repress that for 20 years. Yeah.
There is this guy in ARE. They have a lot of study in the ARE, Edgar Cayce's study group, that has to do with a lot of lucid dreaming.
Great. I would be so interested in knowing more about that.
Mm-hmm.
I think we've covered a lot, and I want to thank you so much for your time. I feel like we've just scratched the surface. It's really a big topic, especially because we're talking about Aikido as well, and
even the unconscious.
And there's a lot. So
we have even in terms of dreams, one could even differentiate Carl Jung, Sigmund Freud.
Yeah, I'm definitely more Jungian in terms of my work. But
Yeah.
yeah.
We are really just in the surface of it. I've been 30 years in radio. I had a podcast, and sometimes I feel drying up. I need inspiration. So I volunteered to be your guest even in Christmas, New Year, and those things, because sometimes when I'm alone in my broadcast, I could run out of ideas, or I need to be stimulated by another person to talk to, or maybe it could be relevant because people dream or get depressed during Christmas,
Yes.
or also New Year, or also during graduation period. These are the times where this is a doorway, or this is a passage, this is a bridge, symbolically, that people may need to integrate their processes.
Yeah. I would be more than happy to collaborate with you again. That would be amazing. Yeah. My plan for this new year is to meditate and fast. But if it can help people to like talk about the unconscious, that's also okay.
Well, the meditation, of course, there's a lot of forms of meditation, but if you're into a particular way of meditation and you feel some other activities may get in the way, I think that's your something to process. But because in my years in life, I've encountered a lot of meditators, and I tell you, there are good meditators, there are unhealthy meditators, and there are even meditators whom people have regarded so much, and they have regarded so much this meditator, and then he was put to jail.
Maybe
because
knock on wood, I don't want to go to jail.
No. So long as you're really aware and processing your shadows. The idea is to be mature enough to also have the humility that in some way or the other, we are also helpless at some point and we need help.
Oh yeah, that's been coming up a lot.
Yeah. And I'm really so glad I met you in that Daloy workshop on dreams. The title actually is Unraveling the Spiritual Aspects of Dreams. That's the title of the
beautiful title. Yeah, thank you so much. Hope to collaborate again soon. Dream Sensei.
If you have any audience, they could just reach me in my Facebook account, Lucito de Jesus. They could reach me there.
And they can and work with you, right, for dream analysis and so on. Yes, that's great. Lucito, I'll put that in the notes. Yeah.
Or maybe my email, lucitodesus@gmail.com.
All right. Thanks again.